What's going on, Rip City? This is the Rips. No, this is not the Rip City Blazers.
This is not
podcast.
the Rip City Blazers podcast.
This is the BLEAV in Blazers podcast presented by Bet Online. You know what, Torey?
Just restart that.
No, keep this. We're keeping this in because you know what? This is kind of how the Blazers season's gone. Like nobody knows what's happening. It just fell off a cliff, and we're all doing it wrong. So this is the BLEAV in Blazers podcast presented by Bet Online. I am Stephen Vaughn. That's Torey Jones. Torey, it's March. At least the Blazers stink, but we got March Madness coming up. What's going on, man?
Yeah, well, the Blazers started well this year, so you kind of went straight into like a 4-10 record there instead of a 10-4 record.
Mode. I went full tank mode at the start of the year.
Yeah, well, at least you have great odds at Wembanyama then. I'm looking forward to March, man. It's already March. I'm looking forward to March Madness. Favorite time of year. I wanted to do a podcast just talking about March Madness, but tying it into the Portland Trail Blazers in terms of talking about which players Blazer fans should be scouting as the Blazers look like they're going to have a lottery pick. They just lost against the New York Knicks. The tank is going downhill, full speed ahead, right? Going down the standings, which is good. So 7th pick right now, 6th pick, potentially a top 3 pick. We'll talk about players, obviously, that Blazer fans should pay attention to for that pick. But then also a pick in the early 20s via the New York Knicks right now, as it looks like they're going to avoid the play-in, and that pick will convey. It's not like last year with the Pelicans pick. So players in that range are scoutable for Blazer fans too. And then the Blazers currently have like the 45th or 46th pick, which is a second-round pick. I believe it's from the Hawks. So second-round players are also of interest in this tournament, and it's a good chance for Blazer fans to, if they're into scouting players or at least having some knowledge of the draft once it rolls around, this should be an important one for the Blazers. So we're going to talk about a lot of these matchups, and this is going to be a March Madness themed podcast, but we're going to focus on players to scout for Blazer fans as well. It'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I know you've had a pretty decent track record of second-round picks for sure the last couple of years, so that'll be something that I'm very interested to hear as well, not just your first-round picks, but and for fans that listen to this, I also want to hear you hear what you have to say. But of course, the tournament coming around, Torey, so you got to go to Bet Online, bet over there. The NCAA tournament's coming up. Head over to that website, betonline.ag. 50% welcome bonus, first deposit, promo code BLEAV. BLEAV, BLEAV. Receive that bonus. Bet Online, where the game starts. I tell you what, first 4, I've already made a couple bets over there at Bet Online, and I will plan on making more bets throughout the tournament. So I'm excited about it. All right, let's just quickly. I don't even want to touch on any Blazer because it's just. I know what you're gonna say, and you've been in Twitter fights lately. So let's just start. Let's do something fun. NCAA tournament. We'll start in the South region. Number 1 seed Alabama Crimson Tide. A lot of intrigue with them, with Brandon Miller and that circus that has been going on up or down there in Bama. They take on Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Obviously, Alabama's gonna win that game. But first off, Brandon Miller. He's gonna be a lateral pick. What are your thoughts on Brandon Miller, especially with the fit in Portland? Let's say Portland doesn't get that first pick, doesn't even maybe they get the second pick and they don't want Scoot Henderson. They want to go with Dame and Ant. They go Brandon Miller. What about Brandon Miller on the pro level with Torey?
He has a pretty high floor. I'm not entirely sure what his ceiling is, but he can shoot the hell out of the ball. He can handle the ball. Has really improved as the season has gone on, creating off the dribble. And that's where his upside lies. Can he be that star, that potential top 20 player because he can create offense off the dribble at a really high level against the best defenders in the NBA? I'm not entirely sure. That's kind of this key in this tournament for me when scouting him is going up against some potential, future NBA defensive players or high caliber defenses as Bama gets later into the tournament, should they make it there. What type of success will we have on that stage against those caliber defenders? He's had success all year. It's just kind of the one thing for me to scout, but at the very least, he seems like a guy that will be able to be a positive defender on the ball. Seems like a relatively smart defender, and then he can shoot that thing. It'll be interesting to see what his measurements are because he's listed as 6'9". I think he's a little shorter, but regardless, he would be the perfect type of small forward draftable player for the Blazers if they jump up to 3 or 4 in the draft because he's not falling past there.
Yeah, no, if he hits, he's going to be a good player. But there are some questions, like you said. I think the athleticism can be questioned a little bit. He's got quickness, not an explosive leaper, I wouldn't say. He can obviously jump, but I wouldn't say he's the greatest leaper of all. Still has some explosiveness issues, I think, quickness-wise, but quick enough. And I don't think he's really ever going to be a bust. Like, I think the way he plays, Torey, he can shoot the rock, like you said, and he can move a little bit. Like, worst case scenario, is he like Trey Murphy? Like, does he kind of remind you of that? Like, worst case scenario, like he's going to be a really solid player that you can play out there. Like Trey Murphy now, not Trey Murphy like in his potential, but I think he can be a role player at the worst. But at this top, like he can be a really good star player. I do want to ask you about the whole off the court issue with Brandon Miller. Of course, his teammate Darius Miles was charged in the murder, and Brandon Miller brought the gun to Darius Miles. It was in his car. Now he claims that he didn't know it was in the car, and then that murder weapon was used as a murder weapon, and even his car got shot with bullet holes. But he's not going to get charged in it because legally he didn't do anything wrong, because it was basically he passed the weapon to a person. Are there any character concern issues, or if the Blazers have a chance to draft him, is he a guy that you want to draft even with that stuff looming?
I'm hesitant because part of it is I don't even like talking about issues like this because
you have to.
They shouldn't
you have
be
to,
issues,
man.
but you have to when it comes to Brandon Miller, and it makes me uneasy. I can't lie. It's hard to know exactly what was true, so that's part of the reason why I haven't even really talked about this whole situation a ton on any of my platforms. Is it's a situation where I don't know what the truth is, and speculating on it is just speculation. But that's where an NBA team will have to try and do their digging and dig into his background. And you don't want to bring a guy into your team and rely on him in terms of spending a top 3 or 4 pick on him. You don't want to bring him in and then he has problems, because even if you end up being a really good NBA player, if you surround yourself with the wrong people and you make wrong choices, it can be bad. I mean, just look at John Morant right now in Memphis. There's a chance John Morant misses the rest of the season. Their season's lost, and Morant has worked out wonderfully as a second overall pick on the court, but off the court, he's making a lot of bad decisions. So, I don't even want to get into, like, his liability in this whole situation and whatnot, but obviously a team's going to draft him. And it's not a situation where he's not going to be playing NBA basketball next year. Shoot, he didn't even miss a game for Alabama this year. As an NBA team, you have to dig into his background and try and do your due diligence with a guy like this. It does make me uneasy, but some team's going to draft him. So, if the organization feels comfortable enough to draft him, then I'll trust their decision, I guess. And hopefully he isn't somebody that ends up in trouble once he's in the NBA.
Yeah, on the court he'd be great. You have to have questions about his maturity, right? Like, I think that's a maturity thing right there, and also just his decision making. Like you said, you got to choose who you're friends with. You got to choose who you're associated with. That's part of being a professional. He's not a professional quite yet, but that will be brought up. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with the draft, but he will be in the NBA top 3 pick, top 4 pick, for sure. We all got Alabama advancing. Next game, 8-9 seed Maryland versus West Virginia. I'm going to go with West Virginia in this one, Big 12. I know Maryland has been solid in the Big 10. I just think the Big 10's a little overrated in like the middle of the Big 10, the lower of the Big 10. I don't think they're very good. I do like West Virginia. I love Bob Huggins as a coach. I think he's one of the best coaches basically ever. And so I do like West Virginia to advance in this game.
Yeah, the Big Ten did terrible in the tournament last year, so in games like this where I had no idea who I wanted to pick, I tended to go against the Big Ten, and especially for the Big 12. Kansas is in the Big 12. They won the championship last year, so conference affiliation does seem to maybe matter. Like, some conferences end up getting overrated and therefore overseeded in some years' tournaments, so maybe it'll be the Big Ten again this year, because last year that's what it was. This is just kind of a boring game with two teams that I don't think either of these teams are going to be Alabama. There's a couple 8-9 games that I find very intriguing, but it seems to be that way every year. There's like an 8-9 game that's just completely boring, or a couple of them, and then there's a couple 8-9 games that are fascinating. This is one of those kind of boring ones to me, but it's NCAA tournament basketball. If it's a close game at the end, it'll be thrilling.
Yeah, it's one of those games where I won't have it on the TV unless it's close. So I'm with you. But who you got, Maryland or West Virginia?
I got West Virginia.
All right,
picking against the Big Ten.
I like it. 5-12 seed San Diego State versus Charleston. I want to let you go first on this one. I have a very strong opinion on it, so I want to hear your opinion first on it.
So something in terms of picking brackets that I tend to do is I tend to go against teams that have questionable offenses that rely more on defense, and teams that haven't had good tournament results in previous years. And San Diego State never seems to make much of a run, and they're more of a defensive team than an offensive team, is how I've always looked at them. So I was very tempted to go with Charleston in this game because I love picking myself a 12-5 upset. But every single year, there's a 12-5 upset that seems like, oh yeah, that's an easy 12 to go with, that the 5 seed wins. So I went with San Diego State because I feel like this is one of those games where it's like San Diego State seems like the easy upset pick. They're out of the Mountain West Conference, and Charleston is a legitimate team. They're 31-3. They're 31-3. They won 20 straight games this year. They're riding a 10-game win streak into the NCAA tournament. They got 5 players averaging double figures. Like, Charleston is the type of team where they profile as a team that could upset a 5 seed. I just feel like this is one of those games where you expect the 12 to get the job done, and they don't. So I went with San Diego State.
Yeah, I'm with you, actually. I love San Diego State in this spot. I think Charleston is one of the more overrated teams in the tournament. I know they're 31-3, but you look at who they've played. They haven't played anybody good, and the teams that they played that were good, North Carolina, who's not even that good, they lost to them by a lot. They played Virginia Tech, and they beat them by 2 at home. They beat Kent State by 2 at home, and that's it. Like, the rest of their schedule is really brutal, and that's why they're 31-3. There's a reason why they have that record. I don't think that they're that good, really, and I think San Diego State has the really good defense that will stop them. Number 7 against the 3-point percentage this year for San Diego State. Charleston's not even a great 3-point shooting team. Like, they're 210th in the nation in 3-point percentage. So, like, they're not going to get hot from 3, and San Diego State's going to guard that as well. The thing that Charleston does in their conference, you know, they're bigger and stronger than the other teams. They're 17th in the nation offensive rebounding percentage. San Diego State does a great job on the defensive boards. So I like Trammell, like Darian Trammell of San Diego State. He used to play at Seattle University. He's a good little point guard. Matt Bradley, formerly from Cal, I like him. I really like San Diego State to win this game and cover the spread. It was like 5.5 or 6. I like San Diego State a lot in this game.
Yep. All right. So next
there's
game
no real pro prospects in that one.
Yeah. And this next game is the same way.
Yeah.
No real pro prospects, but it's a fascinating game.
Fascinating. Virginia taking on Furman, 4-13. I'll go first on this one. Furman. I got Furman to win this game. I also got Furman to win the next game. I'll just say that right now. Actually, I lied. I was going to, but I have San Diego State. Furman.
You got me excited.
I did, but no, I lied. Furman, they are a really good offensive team. Like, I feel like in the NCAA tournament, you got to be able to shoot the basketball. You got to be able to score a lot if you're going to pull off these upsets. The defense isn't great. But what Furman does is they're one of the most efficient offenses in the nation. They've played some good teams this year. They lost to them as well. So that argument I made against Charleston, I can't say against Furman. But I do think Furman, veteran-laden team, a really good offensive team. Virginia, the way that they play is not great. They're, obviously a slow-down team. I think they got overseeded. Like, they should not have been a 4 seed. They should have been about a 6 probably.
How are they higher than Duke?
I don't know. And that's the thing. We've seen this happen in the tournament before with their tempo. Like, if they're not making shots, which isn't a for sure thing, like, they're not a great shooting team. They're an average shooting team. A team can beat them. And if Furman gets hot just enough, they could beat them. And I do think Furman wins this game over Virginia.
Here's the thing with teams that slow it down. The fewer possessions in a game, the more likely of an upset. And that's why I don't like the style of play for Virginia. Because you think about it, if you have a 1 and a 16 seed, hypothetically, and you give each team 1 possession, it's a lot easier for the 16 seed to get the better of the 1 seed if you give both teams 1 possession. If you give both teams 100 possessions, it's a lot harder for that 16 seed to outplay them over 100 possessions. So Virginia being a team that slows it down as much as they do, I think is part of the reason why they've been upset prone. A lot of their games are close, and with Furman being a really efficient offensive team, it could become a situation where if Furman's hitting shots and UVA ends up behind in this game, and they're having to play catch up and get out of the tempo that they like, then I like Furman in that situation. And I think there's a legitimate chance just with Furman's ability to score the ball that they get out to that early lead, and then UVA just struggles to play from behind. And we've seen that in tournaments before. When Virginia went on their run, they had Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome. Like, they had the guard playmaking and shot making.
DeAndre Hunter too.
Yeah, like they had that at a really high level. They don't have that.
They had pros on their team. That's the difference. They had pros on that team.
Yeah, Reese Beekman, Kihei Clark's been there for 5 years now. Like, they got some guards, but they're not as good. So that's why I think they were able to play their style of basketball and actually win an NCAA championship, was because they had really good guard play, which tends to win out in March. But I do not trust Virginia either. I'm also going with the 13-4 upset.
The Paladins, also to note, Furman number 1 in the nation, 2-point field goal percentage, 59% on the season. I think that's important. 6 versus 11 seed. There's a couple pro prospects on Creighton, who is the 6th seed. They're taking on NC State. Mm-hmm. Who's the guard on NC State? I can't think of his name right now.
Traquavion
Smith. Yes.
Yeah.
He's probably a first round pick. You got for Creighton Arthur Kaluma. You got Brady Schneiderman, who whatever. I think he's somewhat of a pro prospect, but I don't think he's that great.
He'll probably be a two-way guy.
Yeah, probably. And then Kaluma's got some potential as well. But Creighton taking on NC State. I got Creighton, and I actually like Creighton a lot. I have them advancing to the Sweet 16. I have them winning in the next round as well. Same thing. Really good offense, but the defense has been really good this year for Creighton, which is not necessarily what they're known for. But their defense has been great. Top 20 on the nation defensive side this year. And I think, they struggled at the start of the year. They were 9-8 to start the season, Torey. They ended out the season real strong, 21-12. I think that they have a potential chance to really make some noise in the South. Like, I think the South has a lot of upsets where they could get all the way to the Elite Eight. Which is actually where I have them, in the Elite Eight. I think Creighton makes a run, but I think they'll beat NC State.
Yeah, they missed Kalkbrenner for a portion of this season, which contributed to some of those losses, some of that slow start. With Kalkbrenner, they're a much better team. Kalkbrenner is their big man, pretty skilled big man. He's probably going to be a late second-round pick as well, so could be, with the Blazers needing could be a guy to watch for Blazer fans. I don't like how they lost by 22 to Xavier in the Big East tournament. I'm not a big fan of Xavier. I don't think Xavier is strong defensively whatsoever. This team is just really inconsistent. So it's Creighton drives me crazy, man. Like, I could see them losing first round. I could see them going on a run to the Elite Eight, like you said. I don't know what type of team you're going to get. I did read something about how they struggle against guards, and if that's truly the case. I didn't watch Creighton a ton to know that for sure, but NC State has good guards. I don't know what you're going to get from NC State either, because they got absolutely demolished by Clemson, who's not even in the tournament. They lost by 20-plus against Clemson in the SEC tournament, so they're coming off a really bad loss themselves. This first game you could see NC State winning it. I'm actually hovering on the fence. I've changed my mind a couple of times because I don't like any of the 11 seeds, but with NC State, you got guards that can get hot, and Cinderella teams. Just look at North Carolina as an 8 seed making the championship last year. They made the championship because they had Caleb Love, RJ Davis playing really well, good guard play. So NC State, if their guards can get going, then they could be a problem for Creighton. I don't know what to think of Creighton because they're just inconsistent, and part of that is they don't have much depth. So if you get into foul trouble, or deal with an injury or anything like that, then Creighton is very beatable. If they're able to just play their starters consistently the entire game, then they're a really tough team.
Yeah, and you talk about the guards, Traquavion Smith. He's a good player. He's going to be an NBA guy for sure. Now, he tested the waters last year at the Combine. He measured 6'3" 3/4 in shoes, so not super tall. I don't think he'd necessarily be a fit for the Trailblazers, especially where they're picking. I mean, he's in that range where the Blazers would pick with the Knicks pick possibly, but I don't think he'd necessarily be on the Blazers board. Arthur Kaluma, I think he's a guy that the Blazers could look at in the second round. Like, he had a really good NCAA tournament last year against Kansas, 24 points, 12 rebounds, showed the athleticism. I think he's a work in progress, definitely, but he's a guy that I think could end up being a solid pick, 6'7" on the wing, good athlete. I do like Arthur Kaluma in that sense.
Yeah, I'm interested to watch this game for Kaluma, Kalkbrenner, and then Traquavion Smith's going to be a fun guy to watch. He doesn't make much sense for the Blazers. He will be taken in that Knicks pick range, but as a small guard who doesn't play much defense, who shoots a lot, doesn't really make much sense for Portland. Unless they make some big splash where they trade out all their guard depth, Sharpen, Anthony Simons for like a Joel Embiid or something. Then,
Ooh.
I mean, but then we don't have that pick anyway, so.
Torey, what do you know? Joel Embiid, get him to Portland. Let's
We're
go.
Yeah.
Like I said,
I don't want to get people's hopes up. Unlike
I got Creighton in the Elite Eight, beating this team in the second round. Baylor taking on UCSB, Santa Barbara, the Gauchos from the Big West. You know what, Torey? This UCSB team, the Gauchos, Santa Barbara, they got some dudes. They got some D1 guys on their team. So, and when you're looking at upsets, I do love to see that. Like, it's not that I think that they're gonna beat Baylor, and not that I think Santa Barbara is one of the best teams out there. But what they got Miles Norris, who played at Oregon for a little bit. They got Andre.
Dude, I can't believe we're talking about Miles Norris because I remember him when he was like a top 20, I believe, prospect like years ago. It's kind of crazy to hear his name pop up. He didn't really pan out, but for a 14 seed, he's a dude that can play for sure.
You got Andre Kelly, who played at Cal, basically was a double-double dude at the Pac-12. Now he's struggled a little bit more in the Big West, I think, fitting into his teem. But when you go against the high majors like Baylor, I think he has a shot to have a nice game. The problem with Baylor also, Torey, is they, we know this in Portland. Defense matters. Baylor, 104th in defense this year. Terrible defensive team compared to a lot of the other teams in this range. I think that in the NCAA tournament, when you're a bad defensive team and you're the favorite, that's when you have a chance to get upset by one of these lower ranked teams. They get hot for one game and it's a high scoring game in the 70s and the low 80s. Like, that's how you beat these teams. I think Santa Barbara can run up and down. They can score a little bit. Baylor, not a great defensive team. I think this game's close. I like Santa Barbara plus the points, but I do have Baylor advancing, but then losing to Creighton in the next round. What do you got?
If I was to pick a 14 over a 3, this would be the game, but I just think the guard play, I kind of go back to that for a lot of teams. I just think the guard play for Baylor is going to win out with Flagler and LJ Cryer. Did I say his name right? I don't know. Yeah, good. See, I thought so. Keontae George.
Yep.
We got to talk about Keontae George because he's a guy that's projected to be a lottery
top 10 pick, yeah.
Yeah, he's 9th on Tankathon's mock draft. He doesn't make much sense for the Blazers as a 6'4" guard, but for a guy that's going to be in the top 10, I don't know. He's a guy to watch for sure. Just have knowledge on this draft. In Portland could end up in a situation where they do trade Simons for something and keep their lottery pick. I'm not sure. Who knows where this team goes. So it's not like it's 1,000% out of the picture that they would draft a guard depending on some of the moves they do this offseason. So it does make sense to scout some of these guys, to be up to speed on some of these guys. And Keontae George is a guy that's going to be picked in the lotto.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, someone could fall in love with this guy, right? And whether the Blazers have that pick and they're looking to trade out or looking to trade up, like whatever it is, like he's a guy that's there, good athlete, not necessarily big though, like you said, 6'4" is what he's listed at, and shooting the ball, he shot the 3-point ball a lot better later on in the season, 35% on the year, but he shot 7 threes a game, so you do like the volume. Percentage you'd love to get up a little bit, but yeah, it doesn't make sense for the Blazers. Neither does Cryer or Flagler either, really. Again, two smaller guards. Not really what the Trailblazers need, but Baylor, I think, loses to Creighton round 2, but they do beat UCSB. We go with the 7-10 matchup, Missouri taking on Utah State. Utah State, the Aggies, they are a great shooting team. I got Utah State winning this game. Not much about it. I think Missouri has a lot of transfers that are on their team. Like, they play like us against the world type of thing, and that's not really my style. I think talent kind of rears its ugly head in this type of situation. Missouri's had a nice year, but I think it ends right here with Utah State, who can really shoot the basketball. So I like Utah State over Missouri.
Yeah, Utah State's playing well. A team that can shoot the basketball against a team that struggles to rebound in Missouri. They shoot. Utah State shoots a lot of threes, hits a lot of threes. The threes they miss, they're going to be able to get some offensive boards on. I like this matchup for Utah State. They've been playing really, really well, and Utah State is one of my sleeper teams. I actually have them in the Sweet 16. I just like the way they're playing right now. I like that they got a couple guys that can score at a really high level. Stephen Ashworth, Taylor Funk, which is just an absolutely awesome name. You always need a couple of guys. If you're going to be a Cinderella team pulling off a couple upsets, you need a couple of high-level scorers to put points on the board, and then you usually need some sort of matchup advantage, and the matchup advantage for Utah State is if they get hot from 3, they can compete with anyone. So if they get hot, they're a team to watch for sure.
And that's what they do. They're 11th in the nation in 3-point percentage. And you look at Missouri, 179th in defense. Like, the defense just isn't there. They've kind of got lucky this year, so I'm with you. Utah State. I like that, but I like them to lose to Arizona, who's taking on Princeton in the 2-15 matchup. Arizona's got some dudes. They got some dudes I think that could make it to the NBA as well. Azuolas Tubelis, who was he wasn't Pac-12 Player of the Year. It was Jaime Jaquez, but Tubelis was one of the front runners. Probably should have won that award, I would say. He had a really good year. 6'11", big guy. Doesn't really step out and shoot it, but I think he's a guy that, do you think he fits in Portland? Like, if Portland would be looking at a big guy, do you think he's a guy that Portland would want?
I just don't trust him defensively. Like, I think Portland has to look at defense first, and you've seen some really good defensive big men come from the late first round, early second round with Robert Williams III and Nicholas Claxton. But those guys are normally freak athletes for big men that are just very raw, not super skilled, need to learn how to play. And Tubelis is just kind of the opposite, is more of an offensive big. I mean, he's a good player. I think if Portland had their defensive issues solved, then he could be a guy that could make a lot of sense simply because he can, he can score the ball. He can potentially shoot the ball later on in his NBA career. He's only shooting 30% from three right now, but shoots 76% from the free throw line. So could be a guy that develops a 3-point shot. He's just skilled, man. He's a skilled big, 6'11". I just don't know if he's big enough or athletic enough to play the center spot. I don't really know if his skills separate themselves at the power forward spot, and then defensively I have question marks. So he'll be an early second round pick most likely, but those are the reasons why he won't go higher, and I probably wouldn't target him if I was Portland.
Yeah, I mean, I think shooting-wise, he's going to have to develop some type of jump shot to play in the NBA, or else he'll be an overseas guy, which is fine as well. Like, his game kind of resembles that because he wants to bang it down low and he wants to be physical, which is not really what you expect from a lot of these foreign players, but that's the way he plays. Like, he wants to bang down low and score down low and doesn't want to take it outside because he's not a great athlete. And so I do think that's going to hurt him, but he'll be drafted. I think he's going to have a shot to be in the NBA. I just don't think he'll be a great NBA player. But I do got Arizona winning over Princeton. I have them beating Utah State. You have Utah State beating Arizona, is that right?
Yep, I have Utah State beating Arizona, then losing to Baylor. I got Baylor versus Alabama in the Elite Eight, and I got Alabama advancing to the Final Four.
And I got Creighton over Baylor, and then Bama over Creighton in the Elite Eight. So we both got Bama in our Final Four. You want to head over to, what brand you want to go, the East now?
Let's go to the Midwest. So
Midwest?
The second overall number one seed is
you.
Houston facing Northern Kentucky. Houston's going to win this game.
Yeah.
I mean, we say that. There has been a 16 seed to beat a 1, which was UMBC, which was a phenomenal game. Not only did they win, they beat Virginia by like 20, but only time it's ever happened. Regardless, Houston is a team to watch even in this first-round game because they have a guy that could make a ton of sense for the Portland Trailblazers in Jarris Walker, who right now, according to Tankathon's mock draft, is projected to go with the 7th overall pick. He's a 6'8", 220-pound power forward, very physical player, very strong player, and I think that's somewhere where Portland's been lacking. They haven't had enough strength, physicality. Jarris Walker makes a ton of sense for the Blazers because he projects as a really high-level defensive player. He is shooting 34% from three this year, so, it could be a 3-and-D guy. And then is just scratching the surface of potentially what he can be as a shot creator, has shown some flashes there. He just doesn't have to do a whole lot in Houston, a team with 3 really good guards, a really high-level offense. He just plays a role, but he plays it really well, and that's what the Blazers need, at least, in year one from a rookie that they take 6th or 7th. It's just a guy to come in and help them, and then long-term hopefully can develop into a much better player, maybe a borderline all-star at some point. So Jarris Walker is one of the top guys to scout for Blazer fans in this year's NCAA tournament. Should get multiple opportunities to watch them as Houston is really good this year. So Jarris Walker, keep your eye on him.
Yeah, no doubt. And, that's the thing. If the Blazers don't get lucky, they don't move up in the draft lottery, he's a guy that could follow them. You even look at NBA Draft.net, it depends on where you look. They got him at 17. Like, there's a thing where he could fall because he's one of those freshmen that hasn't really developed that jump shot yet, Torey. And I know, we love the athletes. We love the potential. But we saw a guy like Nasir Little who same type of thing. Highly touted out of high school, never really got going on the offense side. He falls all the way down to the Blazers in the 20s. Like, I'm not saying Jarris Walker does that, but I'm saying there is a shot that he can do that as well. So even if the Blazers didn't pick him with that first pick, maybe potentially with that second, New York pick. But I think he's a guy that if the Blazers do draft him, I love it. Like, he has all the makings of a really good player. And I think right now you look at what Portland needs on the wing. You need some really good athletes that can play. And we've seen Cam Reddish not be great. We've seen Matisse Thybulle. We know what he can do. The Blazers need as many wings as they can get. And so if Jarris Walker's available, I think, I love it if it's down there, round 8, or if it's even lower with the Knicks pick. I think Jarris Walker is a good pick there. Marcus Sasser, the point guard, he's going to be an NBA guy. I actually wouldn't hate it as a second round pick. Like if he's available for the Blazers, I don't hate that. I think he's one of those guys where, you don't have to play him every night, but he can go out and do some things for Portland. I've always thought Portland needs some type of backup guard that can handle the basketball. And we saw it, come a little bit earlier this year when Ryan Arcidiacono had to start a game. Like, not that I think, it matters a whole bunch, but I think Sasser's the type of dude that is a veteran that can come in and play that role and not be really worried about his playing time. And I like what he does. So I think he actually wouldn't be a terrible look at a second round pick either.
Yeah, and his draft stock will be fascinating to watch.
With his injury,
Because I could see him rising up into the top 20 just with his skill. And he's going to come in and probably be a serviceable NBA player that can run your offense a little bit. He's more of a scorer, though, but he can really score the ball. But he could also fall into the middle of the second round being a 6'2", almost 23-year-old guard.
Right.
So that's the thing is he has the skill set to maybe get drafted around 20 to 25, but given his age, we've seen teams pass on guys that are almost 23 years old because they'd rather take the 19-year-old or the 20-year-old that has more runway in front of them for development. So he could go, 25 or he could go 55. It's going to be fascinating to see where he goes in June.
Yeah, no doubt. I got Houston going to the Sweet 16. So I don't have them going all the way to the Final Four.
We'll see who you have them losing to when we get to that team. I'm curious.
We'll see that. I'm excited. All right, 8-9 matchup. This is one of those matchups when it's we talked about the first 8-9 matchup. This one is a little more intriguing, I think, just because the unknown of Marcus Sasser's injury. Iowa taking on Auburn. Iowa was the darling last year with Keegan Murray, and they lose to Richmond. I hate to say it. I hate Iowa. Like, I hate watching Iowa basketball, even though they play all offense. Like, I find them terribly boring in football and basketball and all sports. The Hawkeyes are bad to watch, but I got them beating Auburn in this game. I think Auburn, I love Bruce Pearl as a coach. I think he's a really good coach, but I just don't think this Auburn team has got it done this year. And they've been really bad lately. They started out the season really hot. They got really cold by the end of the season. They were 16-3 to start the year. They end up 20-12. That's 4-9 the last 13 games. I just think Auburn's on a real downslope here. Give me Iowa over Auburn.
I actually think this is the best possible matchup for Auburn because this game's in Birmingham, Alabama. It's basically a home game for Auburn, which of course is in Alabama. Iowa, their style of play drives me crazy. This year, they don't play defense. They don't make a high percentage of threes. They're basically able to win because they don't turn over the ball much, and they make a lot of their free throws, and they make a lot of their shots inside the arc. I just don't think that's a recipe for success in March where you can play a little bit more physical and get away with stuff. And Iowa does foul opponents a lot, and Auburn gets the free throw line. I just think the home crowd will actually matter in this game for Auburn. It'll be on Auburn's side, and that's kind of the tipping factor for me. I think Iowa is overseeded. I thought they should have been a 10 seed. They had a loss earlier this year where they were like a 32-point favorite. I don't even remember who it was against, but they lost by like 10. I don't know if you remember that game, but it was like the biggest
Eastern
upset.
Illinois, yeah.
Eastern Illinois, yeah, that sounds right. Maybe the biggest upset ever in college basketball spread-wise. Iowa has had some really bad moments, some really good moments. That comeback against Michigan State was phenomenal. I don't like the way Iowa plays. I think Auburn, just at least with the guards, maybe potentially being able to get hot, the home crowd on their side, I think Auburn will be able to get it done.
Honestly, I don't really care about this game. This game is another one of those boring
Gross.
ones for me.
Yeah,
It's
probably talked
gross.
too much about this game.
And the main reason I picked Iowa is because I feel like everyone's going to be on Auburn. Like, I'm going to zig when everyone zags because Iowa got
Makes
upset
sense.
last year, so I'm going Iowa in that one. Miami taking on Drake, 5-12 matchup. Are you done with that?
I had Iowa in the Final Four last year. Okay.
Yeah, see, you're one of those guys, so that's why
They
I'm
lost
going
in the
Iowa.
freaking first round against Richmond.
That's exactly why I'm going Iowa. I feel like there's a lot of people that Iowa going deep last year. They're like, I can't pick them 2 years in a row.
Can't do it.
Give me
Pisses
Iowa.
me off.
First round.
Screw
exactly.
Iowa.
Exactly. That's exactly why I'm doing
Disgusting.
it. Thank you. Miami taking on Drake, 5-12. Go first, Torey, on this one.
I'm taking Drake. This is the perfect 12 versus 5 upset in my opinion. Tucker DeVries is a legitimate star. Will probably be the best player on the court in this game. When you have a 12 seed with the best player on the court, that's normally when you will swing for that 12 versus 5 upset. Miami has a couple good guards. Isaiah Wong's a really good player. You could make the case that he's better than DeVries. He's averaging 16 points per game. He's a very
think he'll be
shifty
drafted?
player. He screams two-way guy to me, just as a guard that like is able to put up points in college, but just isn't efficient enough or good enough at any particular thing to be in the NBA. He seems like a guy who's just going to dominate the G League for a long, long time, and that's it. Or maybe go overseas and dominate. I don't think he's an NBA player, but he's a fun guy to watch. I don't know, man. I don't trust Miami. I didn't trust them last year, and they went to the Elite Eight. But they don't have much size. Isaiah Wong had a bad game against Pittsburgh right before the ACC tournament. They're coming off a loss in the ACC tournament to Duke. I don't know. Just something, I don't even know what it is. Something with this Miami team feels off to me. And I like Drake. They're a good offense. They got a star. They can knock down shots. They take care of the ball. They're very capable. They beat Mississippi State by 6 this year, which just lost in the first 4 to Pittsburgh in a very close game. Yeah, I like Drake in this one. Who do you got?
Yeah, I got Drake as well. Roman Penn, solid point guard as well. But the Drake defense is what I really like. 45th in the nation. Miami defense, 131st.
Sure.
I go back to those type of things. Like I hate these big schools that don't play defense. These schools like Drake, they get up for these type of games. Also, the point spread really screams at me that Drake's going to win this game. The spread's at like 2. Miami's favored by 2 points over Drake in the 12-5 matchup. Like that just screams.
That's insane.
Insane and screams to me to bet Drake. So I like Drake in this matchup for basically all the reasons you said as well. I wanted to move Drake to the Sweet 16, and I still might. I'm going to hold out on this. The tournament hasn't started yet, but I haven't yet. I have Indiana in there over Kent State in the 4-13 matchup. I want to pick Kent State, Torey. Can you convince me of that? But I got Indiana right now.
Well, tell me why you like Indiana, and then we'll talk about this.
I don't know. I've always liked Trace Jackson Davis. I think he's good. I like Mike Woodson as a coach. I think he's solid. I think offensively, defensively, like they're fine. Like they're not gonna be giving up a bunch of points. They're not gonna give up a bunch of rebounds. They're just kind of solid all around. Like I don't have a lot to hate about Indiana. So that's the reason why, like, I'm gonna pick him because I think Trace Jackson Davis is gonna be the best player on the court, and I think he can dominate the game.
Yeah, they also have a player named Jalen Hood Schifino, who right now is projected as a first-round pick. For the most part, I've seen him projected as a late first-round pick, but I have seen some reputable mock drafts have him as like the 14th, 15th pick. He's a 6'6" shooting guard, has decent size, and he can get hot. Like he had 36 against Purdue to help upset them, but he's not the most efficient player, and he doesn't get to the free throw line. And he can shoot them out of a game. If he's playing well, they're going to be really hard to beat because he gives you that second stud next to Trace Jackson Davis. But this year, true shooting percentage for Jalen Hood Schifino, 49.9% because he shoots under 35% from 3, doesn't get to the line much, only 42% from the field, shoots a lot of mid-range shots. Those aren't the most efficient shots. If he kind of hijacks their offense, then they could be upset prone. They don't have a ton of quality size. Trace Jackson Davis is basically their big, but he's not the biggest guy. He's not the strongest guy. Like he's not somebody I worry about a ton just in terms of a big body. And that's the thing with these like 4 versus 13 matchups is For the lower seed, I look for guard play. For the higher seed, I look at, can they dominate them on the interior? I don't think Indiana will be able to do that against Kent State. So that's my worry with Indiana is just, I don't know. Do they have that second guy to step up and help Trace Jackson Davis? That could be Jalen Hood-Schifino, but he has had games where he's shot them out of games. Meanwhile, Kent State, on the other hand, if we go to KenPom, let me find him here. They rank 38th in defense, 111th in offense on KenPom, but they just got done beating Toledo, which was a really, really good team. I actually have Kent State in this one, and I actually have Kent State right now in my Sweet 16. They have a really good guard named Sincere Carey, averaging almost 18 points per game. Just seems like the type of guy that's going to be a March Madness star, right? Like, that's a name that nobody knows yet, that a week from now, everyone will know. I just got good vibes with this Kent State team. So I actually got a 12 versus 13 matchup here because I don't really trust Indiana. I thought they were overseeded. They're a Big Ten team. I actually thought they should have been a borderline 5-6 seed. Kent State coming off an impressive tournament win. I got the 12 versus 13 here. Drake versus Kent State. I don't know who I want to end up going with in that, but right now I'm leaning Kent State.
I don't hate it. I in fact love it. I initially wanted that as my pick, but I went back to Indiana. Kent State, their non-conference Torey, they have 3 losses. They lost to Charleston, Houston, Gonzaga, and they were all single-digit losses. So they've played tough teams, really tough this year. I don't hate that pick, but I do have Indiana. Real quick, Trace Jackson Davis as a pro. What do you think of him?
I don't know. There's a lot of these bigs that will dominate college that I'm not sure really what their role is at the next level or if they'll be able to do anything well enough. I mean, just athleticism, quickness-wise, agility-wise, for a big, being able to put the ball on the floor and drive, impressive. Will that be a strength at the NBA level? I'm not sure. He has to develop a jump shot in order to stick in the league, in my opinion, and that's kind of been the issue is after, 4 years in college, I believe he's been there at Indiana. He hasn't developed much of a jump shot, so he is a guy to watch, though. Could be a potential two-way guy.
Yeah, his game doesn't translate to the NBA right now. He definitely has to improve his game to make the NBA, but he's got a shot.
Tankathon has him as the 46th pick in their mock draft, by the way. So.
And that seems about right. Seems about right to me.
Right in the Blazers range.
Yeah. I wouldn't hate if the Blazers drafted him, but I would rather have other guys. Let's put it that way. 6 versus 11 seed, Iowa State going to take on Pittsburgh, who won in the first forward over Mississippi State, which I can't believe they did. But I actually have Pittsburgh winning this game. I think Iowa State is really not great at basketball. They just lost one of their better players. I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now. Can you think of what's the white guy that makes all the threes? It's what is his name? Grill. Wasn't it Grill? Yeah, Caleb Grill. He's not on the team anymore. I don't really like this Iowa State team. I just think they're overrated, and I think the Big 12, because they had so many good teams in their conference. That's why all these teams are getting rated so high. I don't think Iowa State should be a 6. I think Pittsburgh not great either, but I think Pittsburgh, get the win on your belt, get the win over Iowa State. Upset.
Here's the thing with Iowa State is they have some really impressive wins. They've beaten Kansas, who's a 1 seed, Texas, who's a 2 seed. They beat Baylor 3 times, who's a 3 seed, and then they beat Kansas State, who's a 3 seed. But then they lost to West Virginia twice, lost at Iowa by 19. They have 13 losses on the season, a couple bad losses. They're a team that they're an enigma. They can hang with some of the best teams in the country, but then outside of those games, they're incredibly average. Incredibly average. If you take away a team's best opponents, they will look better. That's not the case with Iowa State. So I don't know what to make of them. I don't trust them because of some of their bad losses. They're just one of those teams that is super inconsistent that if they go on a run, you could sit here with them being in the Final Four and saying, oh, wow, look, they played all these tough teams well, so we should have believed that they could make this run. But also, they're so inconsistent, they can lay an egg in any of these games, so you can't really trust them to make that run. So I'll probably end up going with Pittsburgh because I do want to have an 11 seed winning at least one of the 4 games, and I don't really trust any of the 11 seeds. So I'll probably just go with Pittsburgh in this one just to have one of them, but this game is just kind of disgusting to me.
Yeah, first 4 teams, they always make a run, so I do actually have Pittsburgh in the Sweet 16. I have them beating Xavier Xavier, Kennesaw State 3 versus 14 matchup. I do got Xavier winning. I don't have a lot to say about this matchup. Sean Miller, great coach. I think Xavier is another one of those teams. The Big East, I always feel like is a little overrated. But with Xavier in particular, again, not a great defensive team. Had a good offense all season, but you can't trust the defense. 73rd in the nation. That's just going to fall apart at some point. I think they can beat Kennesaw State, who's a good athletic team. But I think Pittsburgh actually gets them in the second round. So I got Xavier beating Kennesaw State, but losing to Pittsburgh in round 2.
Yeah, Kennesaw State's a cool story. It was like a one-win team a couple of years ago. Worst team in D1. Now they're here in the tournament.
First time ever in the tournament.
From them. Yeah. I thought Xavier was overseeded. I thought Xavier should have been a 4 seed, and a lot of other bracketologists agreed. I do bracketology, so that's why I have all these opinions on seed lines and stuff. A lot of people had them as a low 4, and they end up getting a 3 seed. They just don't play defense. They can score the ball, but Zach Fremantle is out for the season. He was a guy they relied a lot on. He was a 15-8 forward for them. So not having him definitely hurts them. They still got some talent on that team, but Sean Miller, back when he was at Arizona, was a bit upset prone. I don't know, man. If Xavier doesn't shoot the ball well and their defense is suspect, then they could be upset prone. They could lose in the first round to Kennesaw State. That's really the issue with them. They're just one of those teams that might be able to just purely outscore teams, but might end up getting upset because they can't shoot well enough and don't defend well enough.
Yeah, I think it's. I think Kennesaw State plays them close, but I think Xavier gets the win, and then it is Sean Miller versus Pittsburgh. That's where Sean Miller played, so I think that'll be an intriguing matchup there. But I got Pittsburgh winning that matchup, so going on the 7-10 game, Torey, Texas A&M, Penn State. This is one of the games I'm actually intrigued by.
Yeah,
I heard a lot of things about Texas A&M being lower than they should have been. They should have been like a 5 or a 6.
Yes,
and for that reason, I'm picking Penn State. Because Penn State plays a really weird style, right? You look at the way Penn State plays, they want to score the basketball. They're a really good shooting team. Like, they don't turn the ball over, and they don't force turnovers. They don't get offensive rebounds, but they don't give up offensive rebounds. Like, they don't get fouled, go to the free throw line, but they don't foul other teams. Like, they just really want to try to outshoot you every single game. They also play, like, no center. Jalen Pickett is going to be he was an All-American, second-team All-American. He's 6'4". Like, he's just a beast. He can beast you down low. He can go out top. Like, Seth Lundy is their center. He's 6'6". Like, they're just a really weird style, a really weird team to prepare for, and I think that can catch Texas A&M off guard. I think they can play with Texas as well. Like, I think it's one of those teams where you don't only get 2 days to prepare for them. It's going to be tough, but I think they beat Texas A&M. I think they lose to Texas in the second round, but I think Penn State is one of those teams that can get the dub over Texas A&M.
So I hate what the selection committee did here because they paired up my favorite 2, 7, 10, and 15 seeds all in the same portion of the freaking bracket. And it just made it a lot harder because Texas A&M should have been a 5 seed. They had 7 quality wins. Net ranking, they were 18th. Ken Palm, they were, let me go to kenpalm.com here. They were
26th.
rated highly as well. 26th. They were a top 40 team on both sides of the ball in Ken Palm, though. So Texas A&M can play both sides of the ball. Last year, they should have made the tournament, and they missed it. This year, they should have been a 5 seed, and they're a 7 seed. I don't know what the selection committee has against Texas A&M, but I had them as a 5 seed, as a high 5 seed, almost a 4 seed. They played their way to the SEC championship, had a couple impressive wins along the way. The reason why they were knocked is because they have 2 quad 4 losses. 2 quad 4 losses, and I don't remember who those are against, but they had 2 really bad losses this year. Quad 4 is like the last quadrant. There's quad 1, which is good, quad 2, quad 3, and quad 4. The thing is are you going to get that team that was a complete letdown, in a couple of games this year? Probably not. They're probably going to be amped up, ready to play, ready to prove the haters wrong, the haters being the selection committee that has held something against them the last couple of seasons. But Penn State, dude, I love the way Penn State's playing. Almost won the Big Ten championship. Almost came back against Purdue in that game. I don't like any Big Ten team except for Penn State because they're very solid. As you said, they're solid, and they basically just turn games into a 3-point shooting contest. And they have really good shooters. Obviously, it's not just threes, it's still basketball, but it basically becomes a situation where, they're not going to make many mistakes, and if they're hot from the three-point line, they're incredibly hard to beat. And then they have that star guard and Jalen Pickett. I have Penn State in the Elite Eight.
There you go.
I have Penn State in the Elite Eight. They're my lowest seed in the Elite Eight. I know that this 7 versus 10 game is going to drive me crazy, though, because I don't have confidence in either of these teams because I think they're both underrated as a 7 and 10. I thought Penn State should have been low 8, high 9. I thought Texas A&M should have been 5 seed. So I hate that they paired these two teams against each other. This is maybe going to be the best game of the first round.
It's going to be a fun game for sure. I don't hate the Penn State advancing pick. I have them losing in round 2 to Texas because I have Texas going to the Final Four.
Yeah. I had that at first.
I think Texas is a really good team, but you're right. Texas A&M, Penn State. We talked about some of the bad games, 8-9. Like this is a 7-10 matchup. This is gonna be a fun game. Two fun styles, and Penn State. If you never watched them play, like you talked about, Torey, like they're just small. And they're fun. They play hard. Like they're gonna shoot the ball. They're gonna get after you. They're a fun team to watch for sure. 2 versus 15. Texas versus Colgate. Torey, Texas, I got them winning, but Colgate is one of those teams who people are going to love because they're number 1 in effective field goal percentage this year, number 1 in 3-point percentage this year, number 7 in 2-point percentage this year, so they can score the basketball, but they really have played one good team this year, and that was Auburn. They lost by 27. I don't think that they really can stop Texas at all, and I think Texas is going to be able to stop Colgate enough, obviously, to get the win. So I like Texas to win. I probably like Texas to cover in this game, too. I think Colgate's getting a little too much love out of the Patriot League, which is not a very good league. So give me Texas all the way to the Final Four, by the way.
I will say this. Colgate has been in the tournament a lot in the past 5 or 6 years. The past couple of times they've been in, they've been able to keep it close. I'm expecting Colgate to keep it close. I think Colgate is the most dangerous 15 seed. I like Texas a lot. I actually think they're the best 2 seed in this tournament, but I think they have the hardest first weekend of any 2 seed in this tournament because I think they have to face the toughest 15 seed in Colgate. Should probably be, 14 in my opinion because they have experience. This is basically the same team that was in the NCAA tournament last year. They got 5 guys that can score and they can shoot the lights out. So if they can play like a defense, they should be in this game against Texas. That's what it comes down to. But it's just going to come down to, can Colgate shoot the lights out from 3? If they can, then they'll be in this game. If they struggle from 3, then they're not going to be in this game. But those teams are always dangerous, man. That's a tough 15 seed. And then if they make it out of that, they got Texas A&M or Penn State waiting for them. Oh, that's tough. So I had Texas going to the Final Four at first. With how tough the road is, man, I don't have the guts to do that. I don't have the guts to do that. So I always pick a 15 over a 2. My pool is upset heavy. In an upset heavy pool, I'm taking Colgate. In a pool that rewards you by adding the seed to your point total, adds 15 points for Colgate, 2 for Texas on top of, I think it's 4 for getting the first round right in my bracket pool. I'll take the risk for 19 points compared to 6. You know what I mean? Like, when you make your brackets, this is the last day to make brackets, definitely base it a little bit upon your bracket pool scoring system. I think Texas will win this game, but I wanted to go with a 15 over a 2 for my upset pool, so I actually went with Colgate in that game. But regardless, I think Texas will have a hell of a time getting out of the first weekend.
Yeah, I don't think that Texas is the most likely to be upset, actually. So I disagree with you there. But
I'm curious to see who you're saying, then.
But yeah, I got Texas going to the Final Four. I think Texas. I love the story of Rodney Terry being their coach, Chris Beard, getting arrested and getting out of there, and now Rodney Terry taking this team through all the adversity. I think that would be a cool story. And like you said, there's a lot of times there's these narrative storylines that we see in the NCAA tournament. I think this could be one of them. So I got Texas going to the Final Four. Yep. I got Houston in the Elite Eight taking on the Battle of Texas. And I do have Texas winning that game. I have Drake against Indiana round 2. I got Indiana winning that game as well. So those are kind of the unusual ones I got going in that one.
And one final thing with Texas, Dylan Mitchell's got to watch in terms of scouting. He's currently projected as the 31st overall pick in Tankathon's mock draft as a 6'7" small forward. So the Blazers archetype to look for.
Yes.
The thing is, he doesn't shoot threes. He has not made a 3 all season. He shoots 43% from the free throw line. For some reason, he's mocked late first. I've watched him play. I don't really understand it. He's basically like an undersized power forward that doesn't really have any offensive skill, but can play some defense.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's an intriguing archetype. That archetype has kind of been phased out. Like the Thomas Robinson archetype or whatever. Those players used to get drafted a lot higher than they do now, but he's an interesting guy to watch just because he's a unique player, a 6'7" forward that can defend, but offensively is very questionable.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been getting a lot of minutes lately. He's in the teens as of late, but it'd be interesting to watch him for sure, because that's a guy that, like, in the past, Neil O'Shea would draft those type of guys, right? Like good athletes that haven't really proven anything. Not sure what Joe Cronin thinks about those type of guys, but still, again, one of those things that he'll be there. He'll be there when the Blazers are drafted, probably in round 2, maybe, or Blazers could trade up for it. So I think there's a shot he is a Trailblazer. So that does it for the Midwest. Heading on over to the West now.
West, yep. Kansas, Howard. I mean, 1 for 16. Kansas there.
Yeah, Grady Dick. He's going to be a top 10 pick. I don't know. I don't necessarily like him as a draft pick. He's fine. I get it. These white shooting guards scare me a little bit. Just stereotyping it, but yes, the white shooting guards scare me a little bit.
So he's Gordon. He's going to be Gordon Hayward.
Yeah, that's the best case scenario, right? Because you can't compare. You can't make your comp to the opposite race, like to a black guy and a white guy. You can't do that. This is about
refrain from this conversation. Me and Steven had many arguments about Chet Holmgren last year, and I refrained.
When I watch Grady Dick play, though, all seriousness, like, I understand why people like him, right? He's tall, he's 6'7", 6'8". He can move around well, and I think that's something that you just don't see all the time. Is those guys that young moving around so good? I just don't see the offensive ability, like, when he gets to the NBA, right? Like, I think he'll be able to play hard. I think he's going to be a solid defensive player, but I just don't see the offensive ability.
You know who he actually kind of reminds me a little bit of? He reminds me a little bit of a bigger Tyler Hero coming out of college, because Tyler Hero wasn't really looked at as a shot creator coming out of college. Some people thought he had that potential, but he was looked at as like a 3-point sniper.
Do you think he's as natural a shooter as Tyler Hero, though?
More natural of a shooter? I think they're about...
The thing about
Go ahead.
The thing about Hero is, like, when I watched him play, like, I liked him coming out of college. Like, I felt like I could tell he could shoot the basketball. Same thing with, like, Devin Booker. Devin Booker was, like, the shooter on Kentucky, but you could tell he could play make a little bit. And Calipari never let him do it. I just don't see that when I watch Grady Dick play. Like, I saw that in Tyler Hero. I'm like, all right, this guy can actually do some things and create some shots. I don't see that out of Grady Dick very much.
Yeah, I mean, I never remember Tyler Hero being much in that regard until he got to the league. So some guys, that'll be the key for him. But he's a guy to scout as a 6'7" small forward for Blazer fans, mocked 8th in Tankathon's mock draft. But he's not a fit that I like for Portland because I don't think he'll be a good defensive player. And you just can't start a poor defensive small forward with this lineup.
Yeah. I think he puts effort out there, so he'll be an okay defender, but that's about it. Jalen Wilson's another guy who we drafted as well. I like him better. I think Grady Dick has more potential. Jalen Wilson, he's more of an end of the first round type of guy. Probably not in the Blazer range. I think he's going to go a little after the Blazers. It'd be too much of a reach for the Blazers to draft them with the Knicks pick. But I think Jalen Wilson has a chance to be okay in the NBA. He'll never be a star. I don't even know if he'll be a starter, but I think he has a chance to be, a solid backup.
Yeah, I think he'll be potentially a good role player right away.
Yeah, one of those guys.
Just if he can shoot the 3-ball well enough, he's just solid. Just solid all-around player. That's like a star in college, but projects more as a role player, but can probably be a role player as a guy that can be an adequate defender and knock down an occasional 3 and then attack off the dribble a little bit. If he's there with the Blazers' second-round pick, he would definitely be an intriguing guy to take a swing on as a 6'8" guy that could potentially be a power forward that could potentially be ready to play a little bit right away. The question is what role does he play? Can he shoot well enough? He's only shooting 34% right now. He's an interesting guy to watch, though. So a couple guys to scout there for Blazer fans. And the next game has three guys to scout for Blazer fans because it's Arkansas, who has three freshmen who are very notable that we'll touch on. Arkansas's taken Illinois first. Who are you going with?
I'm going with Illinois in this matchup. I love Arkansas's potential, but that's all it is. And I think they've been really disappointed this year. I'm a big Musselman guy. I love Eric Musselman on the Muss Bus. I just think that this team has underperformed all season long. They started out so well this season. 11-1. They lost to Creighton over the Maui Invitational, but they had beaten San Diego State. I don't see it with this team anymore. I just think they're down. They're down on themselves now, right? I just don't think they're really to bounce back up. I think Illinois, solid team all around, and going to be physical. Arkansas, not a great shooting team. They can't really shoot the basketball. 304th in 3-point percentage. We saw that in the first four with Mississippi State. They're a terrible shooting team. I think that comes back and haunts you in the NCAA tournament. I do love Anthony Black as a pro, but in this game, I do like Illinois.
Yeah, I went Arkansas. Eric Musselman has had a lot of success in the NCAA tournament, obviously. He was the guy that was there in Nevada, right? Yeah, he was at Nevada, and they went on their run with the Martin twins. And then Arkansas is seeking their third straight Elite Eight appearance, and they do have a lot of talent on this team. They can protect the rim with the Mitchell twins, and then Anthony Black, Nick Smith Jr., and Jordan Walsh are the three freshmen. Walsh, if he enters the draft, he might not, would be probably a mid-second round pick after being a projected lottery pick preseason. But he's a guy that can defend, just doesn't have much offensively, but could be there for the Blazers with that second round pick they have. So he's a guy to scout. And then Anthony Black has been mocked to the Blazers in a lot of mock drafts I've seen. He's a 6'7" point guard, basically, but 6'7", doesn't have the strength to play the three in the NBA yet, in my opinion, but is a really good perimeter defender, can play make, can handle the ball, can drive, can finish, has a floater. The problem is he can't shoot threes. He's a guy to scout, though. If he can end up developing a three-point shot and putting on more strength and being a small forward, he could be a steal in this draft. And he could be a guy that the Blazers look at to solve some of their perimeter defensive woes and kind of replace what Josh Hart was for this team, maybe off the bench, as a guy that can. I think Anthony Black, maybe year one, could be a better perimeter defender than Hart was. I think he's just a little quicker and he's longer, and then can be that playmaker that can play three positions. It's just, can he knock down shots is the question for him, but that's a guy I wouldn't mind the Blazers taking a swing on, so he's a guy to scout as well in this game. And should Arkansas advance and play Kansas, you got 5 potential draft picks, 5 of which the Blazers may look at. Nick Smith being the one most likely. He's probably the best of the bunch. He's a guard that can really score the ball, but 6'4". He's probably going to go highest, maybe like 7th, 8th, 9th range is where I've seen him. Anthony Black is more later lottery, but depending on where Portland ends up, they could take him or trade down for him. But you could potentially have 5 guys in a hypothetical Kansas versus Arkansas matchup in the second round, and I have that matchup in the second round, and I have Arkansas going to the Sweet 16.
Love it. Love that, yeah. I actually like Anthony Black a lot. I think he's going to be a really good pro. So I actually would love him with the Blazers. Do you think, you mentioned him, not being able to shoot right now, which is very true. Do you think he actually could play some 3, like if the Blazers did get him and they went with a lineup with Ant, Dame, Anthony Black, would that work?
I just think he needs more strength. I think that's all. That in the shooting. If he can fix both of those problems, and both those things are fixable, like we've seen guys come into the league and improve shooting the 3 ball, and we've seen guys add strength, then he can play the 3 for sure. Then I actually really like his fit, because that's the thing is if he can cut and then knock down threes, he can play off the ball, but then he can be that table setter, facilitator like Josh Hart was at times, but hopefully just be a better off-ball fit and a better defender.
Great athlete too, like elite athlete. So I love Anthony Black. I think he'd be a great fit with the Blazers. I would love him in a Trailblazer uniform. But I do have Illinois winning. I have Kansas advancing all the way to the Elite 8 where they lose. But talk about contrast of styles in this next one, Torey. That's why we love the NCAA tournament. St. Mary's taking on VCU. St. Mary's the 5, VCU the 12. St. Mary's of West Coast Conference fame. They are, you know what? The thing about St. Mary's, I'm always a big West Coast Conference guy. Like, I love it. I love the West Coast Conference. St. Mary's has gotten robbed a few years of not making it to the NCAA tournament. This year, they got a lot of respect. They're 11th in Ken Palm. But are they any different than they have been in years past? I don't know that they necessarily are. I do have them beating VCU. I think just their defensive style, they can match up with athletic teams. I know Gonzaga has crushed them the last 2 games, and people are worried about that if you're a St. Mary's fan. But I don't think the athletes at VCU are skilled enough to really take advantage of St. Mary's lack of athleticism. So I think St. Mary's gets the win over VCU and advances to round 2.
Yeah. I wanted to go with the second 12 versus 5. I did go with VCU over St. Mary's in this game, but St. Mary's, they feel a little bit different than previous years because they got Logan Johnson who can take over a game. He's been there. But Aiden Mahoney's a freshman that could be an NBA draft pick, a couple years down the line. He's been really good for them, fearless. He's kind of an X factor. He'll have a quiet half, and then he'll have a half where it's like, wow, this guy looks phenomenal. This guy, how's this guy not on draft boards? He's just kind of an inconsistent player, and that's really going to be the key for them is can they get that second guy to step up other than Logan Johnson? Can that be Aiden Mahoney? But VCU, Atlantic 10 was down this year, but they got Ace Baldwin, good guard, averaging almost 7 assists per game in his last 6. So guard play, and then they got a knockdown shooter. I forget his name. The dude with the mustache and the long hair. You know who I'm talking about?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. He's the guy that can get hot. I forget his name. I don't know. I'm not impressed with either of these teams. I just went with the 12 over 5.
I like that. VCU, they're on a 9-game winning streak. They won the A-10, like you said. I think a lot of people are going to be picking the 12-5 upset, so I like to go opposite and zig when everyone zags. So I went St. Mary's on that one. UConn, 4 seed versus Iona. Rick Pitino. Man, I wanted to put UConn in the Final Four so bad. But I don't. I have them losing to Kansas in the Sweet 16. I have UConn over Iona and then beating St. Mary's as well. I think UConn is a team that could win the NCAA tournament, Torey. I believe they're 16-1 on BetOnline. Go check it out. I think UConn has a chance to win the whole thing. Now, the one thing that worries me about UConn is their head coach, Dan Hurley. I don't think he's a very good coach, and he's choked in the NCAA tournaments past. The last 2 years with UConn, they were supposed to be really good, and they got absolutely demolished in the NCAA tournament, and they didn't even show up. So that does worry me a little bit with UConn, but I think that talent-wise, they have a chance to really win this game and advance later on in the NCAA tournament. They got a couple dudes, right, that can maybe get drafted as well.
Yeah, Jordan Hawkins could end up being a star if they go on a run. He's a fun player, shoots the lights out. He's legitimate. He's going to be a first-round pick. He's a guy with a big March Madness run that could play his way into potentially the late lottery just because he's, we talk about Tyler Herro as like a guy that could shoot but showed flashes of being able to do some stuff off the dribble. Jordan Hawkins is one of those guys. He's the guy that makes things go for UConn. I have UConn in my Final Four. And there's questions about a head coach back when they were a 7 seed with Shabazz Napier because Jim Calhoun was gone and they had Kevin Ollie, and Kevin Ollie led them to a championship. So I was reading this. The last time UConn was a top 4 seed, and I thought they should have been a 3 seed, but they're a 4 seed, whatever. The last time they were a top 4 seed was 2011. They were a 3 seed. That was when they won the NCAA championship. In that Final Four was in Houston. This year, it's in Houston. Okay? In that season, when they won it all as a 3 seed, I had them in the championship game as a 3 seed. This year, I have them in the championship game as a 4 seed.
I mean, I don't hate it. I just said I love UConn. I think they're good. And the thing about UConn is they've gone through stretches this year. So they won their first 14 games, then they lost 6 of 8, and then they ended the season winning, 9 of 11. So they've been on.
Yeah, they started playing like they were earlier in the season. They
Yeah.
won a bunch of games to start the season. We're looking like a potential 1 seed, and then went on a bit of a losing skid there in Big East play. But when they're on, they're a really good team. They got that star guard. Sonogo is a dominant big. Jackson is
Solid
one of the
player.
best defensive players in this tournament, in my opinion. Pressures the ball really well. They'll get up and extend. I just like the way this team is built. Now, they don't really have a traditional point guard, but they got 2 alpha dogs on the perimeter and the interior. I really like that. I'm just getting really good vibes with this UConn team. Metrics were really strong. They were they rank 4th in KenPom, 6th on offense, 18th on defense. So they're an elite team on both sides of the ball. Net ranking, they were 8th. Metrics, love them. I love this UConn team. So Iona's a scary team for them to face in the first round because they can score, but I think they're a little better defensively than they have been in past years when they weren't really competitive because they couldn't play any defense. And it's a Rick Pitino team, so Iona's a little scary. I'm a little bit worried about that first round matchup. My bracket could be blown up real quick, but I love UConn, and I don't trust Kansas in this tournament. I just feel like teams never repeat, and I don't know. I watched them a couple times against Texas and watched Texas just kind of control and dominate them. I'm not super impressed with Kansas. I think they're a little overrated. I don't really like St. Mary's. They never make it to the second weekend. Like, I think this is a relatively easy path, at least to the Elite 8 for UConn. I have them going to the championship.
You might have talked to me into picking UConn over Kansas because I do agree. Kansas is the most vulnerable 1 seed, I think, in the NCAA tournament. UConn is an analytics darling. Like, all their numbers scream that they should be in the national championship picture. So I'm with you. I do love UConn. I think I'm going to change my pick officially. I'm going to pick UConn over Kansas in the Sweet 16. But yeah, I like UConn to go all the way to the Elite 8 and then lose. I don't think the Iona team is good enough to pull off an upset over UConn, by the way. I love UConn. Head to the bottom half of that. TCU taking on Arizona State, Nevada. You got any thoughts of that at all? Mike Miles, you like him?
I mean, yeah, he could be a guy that gets drafted as a guard that can score, but probably projects more as a two-way guy, I think. Just those older, undersized guards, it's always hard for them to.
It's like Miles Powell back
drafted.
at Seton Hall a couple years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So he's improved his efficiency a bit this year, which is something I was looking for from him after he dropped out of the draft last year. And then they got, God, I forget his name. I always forget. The big dude, Lampkin.
He's left the team. He left the team, though.
Did he leave the team?
He's in the transfer portal, yeah.
Why do I see him on their injury report?
Well, that's because he left the team, but he's officially in the portal because he was claiming racism or something.
Interesting.
It's a whole story. So Lampkin's
I never heard about that.
He's not on the team. Lampkin's not on the team.
Okay. Well, that changes things a little bit because he was always a guy kind of like
he's good.
That
he's
big
good.
body on the interior. But yeah, I was looking at CBSSports.com and they have him as game time decision, expected return today. So
I don't think that's correct.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. CBS. I blame CBS. Don't blame me. Mike Miles is good. I don't really know a whole lot about this TCU team. They did give Arizona a scare last year, so they were competitive, but Lampkin was really big in that game. They're just kind of eh.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's just a weird team. But Nevada or Arizona State is who they're gonna face, and that'll be a first 4 game later today. I don't know.
I don't trust either of those teams, man. I love the Pac-12, and Bobby Hurley, just like his brother Dan, I do not trust that guy. I
watched Arizona State beat Arizona off that sick half-court buzzer beater from Devin Cambridge. That was fun. I don't trust a Pac-12 school other than UCLA or Arizona. I don't trust TCU.
Arizona State, they want to turn you over. They want to get into you and turn you over. They're a terrible shooting team. 315th in the nation 3-point percentage, 274th in 2-point percentage. They don't even shoot free throws well. They want to get out and they want to offensive rebound. They want to steal. They want to get easy, muck the game up, make it really gross. I just don't like it. I think that they beat Nevada, who led by Jared Lucas, former Beaver great, Elite 8 style baby, Jared Lucas, but I don't like Nevada either. I think Arizona State wins, but I think TCU beats them as well. And I don't think they make any noise in the second round either.
Yeah, I don't like these 11 seeds this year, man. No. I don't know what it is. Normally, I love myself some 11 seeds, not this year.
Yeah, I got them losing to Gonzaga, 3-14. Gonzaga taking on Grand Canyon. Gonzaga, of course, Julian Strother. He'll be a draft pick. Drew Timme. He probably will not be drafted. I don't think. But
yeah, he'll be a 2-way.
He's got NBA, potential. Like he's going to have a shot to play in the league, just like Luka Garza, all these other big guys that are good in college and then won't be good in the NBA. But I got Gonzaga beating TCU as well in the second round, getting the Sweet 16.
So as the resident Gonzaga fan here, okay, Julius Rother's a guy for Blazer fans to scout, potentially with that second round pick as a 6'7" shooting guard, small forward type of guy that can shoot the three ball, has a really good floater for a guy that size. Defensively, he's questionable, but I'm not sure he's a complete lost cause on that end. He's just doesn't have the longest wingspan. He's a guy to definitely watch for. He's had some dominant games, some takeover ability. He's kind of the star perimeter guy now that Kispert and Suggs are no longer there. He was on that team as a freshman, didn't play much. So others got to watch. Timmy, of course, like, I don't know, man. I do not trust my Gonzaga Bulldogs this year, though. They've had so many games this year where they're like playing Lord knows who. It's like a terrible team with like a 5-12 record, and they're tied at halftime. And if you remember last year against the 16 seed, they actually struggled for like 25 minutes. Like it was a game until the final like 10 to 15 minutes, then they pulled away late. It was actually a little bit nerve-wracking. And that was with a much better Gonzaga team. If you're going to go with a 14-3, this might be the game to do it because Gonzaga's had a problem playing down to their opponents this year, and defensively, they're not good. They've improved as the season's gone on, and it resulted in them absolutely demolishing St. Mary's in the WCC Championship by 26, 77-51 final score there, but they're the best offense in the country according to KenPom. But how much of that rating is propped up by playing in a weaker WCC conference? They got offensive talent, but if you can guard Drew Timme, or potentially get him in foul trouble, then this team is just not that great. I do think they have an easy round of first round and second round. I think they have an easy first weekend. I don't really trust this team, though. I do think there is a chance to get upset in the first round if they play down to their competition, which is Grand Canyon, who isn't impressive, but I've seen Gonzaga look bad against worse teams.
Yeah, Grand Canyon got hot in the WAC tournament, but there's definitely been better iterations of Grand Canyon before this year. So I think Gonzaga is going to get the job done, get the Sweet 16. Shout out Ben Gregg from Clackamas.
Yep.
My wife loves him. He's a great player, great kid too. She had him in class and stuff. Loves that guy. All right, so Gonzaga advancing 7-10 Northwestern versus Boise State, Mountain West. Torey, I got Boise State in this one. I'm a Mountain West fan. I stay up late to watch all the Mountain West games throughout the season, so I've watched a lot of Boise State basketball. Marcus Shaver, one of their better players, former UP product. He's a really good player. Max Rice, he's a really good player, coach's son. Tyson Degenhart. I can never say his name.
He should be at Gonzaga.
Yeah, he's a Spokane guy, I believe. He's a big-bodied guy, plays super hard. I like this Boise State team. I think they're good, very experienced as well. I like them over Northwestern. I think Northwestern's overrated in the Big Ten. Just one of those teams that has gotten some wins this year, but I just don't think it's very good. I think their numbers don't really prove out that they're as good as they should be, and I think Boise State gets the job done. I got Boise State going in the second round.
I don't know enough about either of these teams. I know Boise's solid. Don't really have a star. They just got just a solid unit.
Yeah,
and they were in the tournament last year. It was a close game. Forget
Memphis
who it was against. Yeah, Memphis. Fought back hard in that game. I was impressed with the way they fought back. They were down early and fought back in that game. Didn't end up winning it. I don't know. Both these teams are bled to me. I went with Northwestern. I don't think either of these teams make it past the first weekend, though.
I agree. Both teams get crushed, dump trucked by UCLA.
Yep.
UCLA versus UNC Asheville. Asheville's got a good player. Pember used to be at Tennessee. He's a big dude, funny, long hair, but he can shoot threes pretty bouncy for how unbouncy he looks. I watched him play a little bit in the Big South tournament. He's pretty good. Jalen Clark out for UCLA. That does hurt him because he is awesome defender, and UCLA is not the best defensive team. They really need him, but I love UCLA in this tournament. I got them going to the Final Four, beating UConn in the Elite Eight. So I got UCLA in the Final Four, winning that game. They got some pro guys as well. One of the guys I really love with the Blazers for the second round pick, and that's Jaime Jaquez. Not one of these guys that I usually love because he's not a great athlete. But man, Torey, I watched that dude and he is a baller. Like that guy just knows how to play basketball. He loves playing basketball. Like I just love his style of play, man. He does whatever he has to get the dub. And they've been through a lot of battles over there at UCLA. And you usually think glitz and glamour with UCLA, like they're a tough team. And I know Mick Cronin's a tough coach, but Hawkes is a tough dude. I love him in the NBA. I don't think he's going to be a star, but he's one of those guys you draft in the second round and he's still playing 10, 12 years into the NBA and having a nice role on a team. I would love the Blazers to get a guy like Jaime Hawkes in the second round.
Yeah, he'll be one of two scenarios. He'll either be a guy that comes in and isn't necessarily good enough at anything to really make an impact in the NBA, or he'll be a guy that comes in as a second round draft pick because GMs didn't want to draft him because he's a 4-year player, too old whatsoever, and then he comes in and helps teams in a bunch of different areas because he's just a well-rounded player. And then a year later, it's like, yeah, how did that guy end up being a second-round pick? He's the 10th best. He's going to be the 10th best player from this draft. He should have been a late lottery pick. There's always those guys that are older that go drafted too late, in my opinion, because of their age. Herb Jones was one of those guys, for an example. And they come in and, Herb Jones is a different player, but Malcolm Brogdon, Draymond Green, even if you want to go back that far, Chris Middleton. There's always these guys, Jimmy Butler, that get drafted too low because of their age and end up being really impactful. Jaime Hawkes could be that guy. That's a guy for Blazer fans to watch.
Yeah, love him. Amari Bailey, if he comes into the NBA, I think he's got a chance to be probably a first-round pick, I would guess.
Yeah, he was projected top 5 or 10 pick before this season. Hasn't really had the freshman season that people expected out of him, but with what's his name? Who's out?
Jalen Clark.
I always mix him and Wilson up from Kansas. Yeah, Jalen Clark. With him out, Amari Bailey has kind of stepped up in the Pac-12 tournament, and he has a chance with more responsibility on this UCLA team to potentially play his way back into the first round. He kind of fell off draft boards or was looked at as maybe a late second if he entered, is where I was seeing him for a good portion of the season. But he has a lot of talent. He was regarded really highly coming into the season, and with him, having to step up offensively, there's a chance UCLA goes on a run and he plays his draft stock up into the first round.
Yeah, he just never really had to play the offense. Like, he never showed the offensive ability throughout the year because they got Tiger Campbell and they got Jaime Hawkes. Like, he hadn't had to do it, right? And, he's not the best shooter right now as a freshman, but I think he's a guy that, if he did go in the draft and somehow he fell into the second round, the Blazers pick, I would love it. Depending on where their Knicks pick is, I wouldn't hate it if the Blazers looked at him at the end of the first round, but I don't think he really fits with Portland right now. But I do like him. I think he could be a potentially good player in the NBA. But I do got UCLA going the Final Four. Torey, what do you got?
I got UCLA losing in the Elite Eight to UConn. Going to my championship game, I got UConn versus Houston in the Final Four. UConn beating Houston.
I actually have UCLA winning the whole thing in the NCAA championship and playing the winner of the East region. Number 1 seed is Purdue. They're taking on the 16 seed. Texas Southern, Fairleigh Dickinson, whatever. Purdue. They got Zach Edey. I just want to know what your thoughts are on Zach Edey as a potential pro. 7'4", 290 pounds, just a giant of a human being. Does he have a chance in the NBA?
I mean, he's another Boban Marjanovic, probably. Like, if you put Boban Marjanovic in college, he would dominate.
Yeah.
The thing is he's not forced to defend in space a whole lot in college. In the NBA, whenever Zach Edey's in the game, you're just going to put him in a pick and roll and pick him apart. Like, he's not a guy that can defend the pick and roll at the NBA level. Like, defensively, he will struggle defending in space. He's 7'4" and dominates with his size. Really good finisher, though. Like, good footwork for his size. Pretty coordinated for his size. And that dominates in college basketball. In the NBA, when you have some bigger centers that are maybe able to physically match him a little bit more, I don't know how much of a strength he'll have in that regard. And he's not a three-point shooter, so he's not a guy that's skilled or going to do anything on the perimeter at all. He basically just becomes a guy that he becomes an archetype that's been faced out of the league. 10 years ago, he's probably a first-round pick.
So he's been the second pick in the draft. Hasheem Thabeet.
Yeah. Now he's a guy that I just don't think can defend at the NBA level and isn't enough offensively to be much of a role player. So I wouldn't take him with a late second. Two-way guy, probably just like Drew Timme, another really good college basketball big man. Some of these big men, their games just don't translate to the league. You look at Luka Garza; he was a dominant college player, and in the league, he's barely in the league. So
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of Zach Edey's.
Yeah, Garza college
player.
college player of the year for Garza. Edey's going to be the same thing, college player of the year. The thing you like about Edey though, he's so big, but he shoots 73% for the free throw line, so he has a nice touch. Like you said, good finishing side. I think he's got a shot to make it to the NBA. Won't be anything special, but on the college game, he completely dominates. I got Purdue going a long way. I got Purdue going to the national championship game, which I hate. I absolutely hate it because Matt Painter is a terrible coach usually. But I think this Purdue team is actually different, Torey, than years past. I talked about this with other teams. Like, there's been better versions. This is the best version of Purdue's ever had. Usually when they're good, like last season with Jaden Ivey, people liked them, but their defense was terrible. They were a bad defensive team. This year, their defense is almost top 20, top 25. They're 23rd in the nation. I know their guards aren't the most athletic players, and they're freshmen, they're young, but I think Zach Edey is such a difference maker. He's been so good. This side of the bracket, I also think is pretty weak. The East bracket, I think, is one of the weaker brackets. Besides, I think Duke's the second best team in the bracket, and I don't even have them winning the first round. Hit. So I think Purdue has a somewhat easier path to the Final Four, and I do like it there.
This is going to be fascinating to watch play out because I couldn't disagree more. I hate Purdue. I hate Purdue. I think the Big Ten always gets overrated. They start 22-1. They did well at the start of the year. They beat Gonzaga, but they started 22-1. They finished 29-5, which means they finished 7-4 down the stretch. Still a good record, but almost choked the Big Ten championship against Penn State. Like, they're a good team. They're not your typical one seed in terms of talent. I think they're far too reliant on one single guy. And I think it's going to come down to, if you can just drive a Zach Edey and get him in foul trouble and get him out of this game, then Purdue becomes incredibly average. If you have some size that can maybe play a little bit of defense on Zach Edey, then if you slow him down a little bit, they just don't have enough elsewhere. I think they're far too reliant on him. I don't like Purdue. I mean, good luck having them in the championship.
I hate it, dude. I hate it.
I have them losing in the second round.
I was gonna say the matchup I'm worried most about in their bracket is the second round against Memphis. If Memphis beats Florida Atlantic, I think Memphis can beat Purdue. If Purdue can get by Memphis, I think that they have a much easier chance to get to the Final Four.
Yeah. So Purdue lost twice against Indiana. They had a star big man that could put some pressure on Zach Edey defensively and Trace Jackson Davis. We talked about Indiana. They lost to Rutgers by 1. They lost to Maryland. I just think it's going to come down to the game plan for any team should be try and get Zach Edey in foul trouble. And I think Memphis, who I have beating Florida Atlantic, Memphis is the type of team that can put the rim pressure on a Zach Edey to potentially get him in foul trouble. And that's why I have beating Purdue in the second round. I have Memphis going to the Sweet 16.
I agree with you 100%, and that is the one I'm worried about as a Purdue guy, a Purdue backer, the Memphis game, because I got to beat an FAU, but I do have Purdue beating the Memphis Tigers in round 2, but I will be white-knuckling it on that one. That's a worrisome game. The matchup I'm probably most excited about in the first round, Torey, is the 5-12 matchup, Duke versus Oral Roberts. Max Abmas, that's my dude. I know you love Oral Roberts because you had them a couple years ago against Ohio State. I bet on Oral Roberts in that game on the money line. I had them in the second round on the money line. They made me a lot of money that year. I love Max Abmas. I have Oral Roberts beating Duke, but that's mostly because I hate Duke and I want them to lose always. I do think this Oral Roberts team is worse than the team that advanced to the Sweet 16 a couple years ago. Kevin O'Banner is better than Connor Vanover. People are loving Vanover. Have you ever watched that guy play? He's not very good. He's 7'5", and that's about it. I know he can shoot. He's not a very good player, but I like Oral Roberts to win this game and advance to the Sweet 16 over Tennessee. I think Max Abmas goes on another great run and just dominates the game.
I hate that I would have picked Oral Roberts to be any other 5 seed.
I hate the Duke matchup. Hate it.
Other than Duke. Duke's playing way too good right now. Duke is talented. Duke is peaking. They kind of breezed their way to an ACC championship, controlled the entire game against Virginia, who's a 4 seed. Derek Lively's playing much better than he was to start the season. That's a guy for Blazers fans to scout. That is my favorite draft pick with the Knicks pick, by the way, Steven. What do you think about that? What do you think about Lively? And then we'll talk about the rest of this Duke team.
Yeah, I mean Lively. I wouldn't hate it, right? Like he's got some potential as well. Yeah, at the Knicks pick, I think it'd be pretty good. Pretty good pick right there, I think.
Decently athletic big man.
Yeah.
He's listed as 7'1". I'm not sure if he's quite 7'1". I think he's probably more like 6'11". We'll see what his measurements are at the draft combine. That'll be maybe the most.
Yeah, I need to know exactly what those measurements are.
Yeah, that'll be maybe the measurements I pay most attention to at the draft combine, other than Victor Wembanyama's, but he probably won't measure because top guys normally don't measure. But defensively, averaging 2.3 blocks per game in 20 minutes per game. Obviously can't read too much into blocks, but I think positionally he's very sound. He's very agile. He's a decent athlete. In high school, I remember there being some buzz about him potentially being a shooter. That hasn't really played out. But I'm also impressed by a couple of the reads I've seen him make in terms of a couple of the passes. Like, I think there might be a little bit of like skill / playmaking upside that you can tap into that hasn't really been showcased yet. Like Bam Adebayo back when he was at Kentucky was never really much of a playmaker, would just show an occasional flash, and obviously Miami was able to tap into that. Like, I think Derek Lively would be a very moldable big long-term in the NBA. Maybe he can develop a three-point shot. I wouldn't rule that out. Maybe can become a passer, but at the bare minimum is a guy that can just be like a lob target rim protector that can maybe switch onto some slower perimeter players and just be solid in those areas. So that's why I really like him as a guy that could potentially come in and actually be a backup center next year.
I liked Mark Williams last year out of Duke. I know they're different players, but I'm with you. I think Derek Lively has a high ceiling, right? Like if he hits, he could be a really good player where he can do some things with the basketball. I just think that a lot of times with these big guys, we see maybe a play or two and we fall in love with it, aka Harry Giles type of player, and it just doesn't work out. So it does scare me a little bit with these big guys that have a lot of potential and that were high school guys that never really lived up to any type of potential going to college. But I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate the Derek Lively pick.
Yeah, I agree. There's always been bigs like that maybe some of their upside gets a little overhyped, but that's why I look for bigs maybe with that upside, but then have a solid floor, like that they can play some defense, be a potential positive defender on the NBA level, and then can finish on the inside and catch lobs, because even if all that skill stuff doesn't pan out, you still should have yourself a solid big, especially if you take him late in the first round. So, it's kind of more of a high floor, high upside big for me, which I would love to have with that 22nd or 23rd overall pick that the Blazers could end up with from the Knicks.
What about Dariq Whitehead or Filipowski?
Yeah.
Filipowski. I always want to say Filikowski, but I know it's Filipowski.
Yeah, Filipowski. Love his name. Both are projected as first-round picks. Dariq Whitehead is projected right in the A.J. Griffin draft range. A.J. Griffin was drafted 16th. Dariq Whitehead, right now on Tankathon, is projected 16th. Or at least he's 16th on their big board. Dariq Whitehead's a guy that can shoot, 6'6", a little undersized for the three. It'll be interesting to see what his measurements are, to see if he truly has small forward size in the NBA. But he's a knockdown three-point shooter, much like A.J. Griffin was. He's shooting 41% from three this year. Not somebody that's really going to make many plays off the dribble. He actually shoots a better three-point percentage than two. Defensively, I need to pay attention to him in this NCAA tournament. I catch myself watching Derek Lively a lot defensively, so I don't pay much attention to Whitehead. So that's a guy to scout in this tournament for Blazer fans. Dariq Whitehead, Derek Lively, and Filipowski, all guys to watch in this game. Dariq Whitehead I'm watching just to see what I think about him defensively, because he could be a good 3-and-D guy, but I don't know. I'm not really impressed with anything else from him.
Yeah, I loved AJ Griffin in the draft. I actually had him a lot higher than everyone else. I wanted Portland to get him. I don't see Dariq Whitehead in AJ Griffin, or I don't see AJ Griffin in Dariq Whitehead. But yeah, it's one of those guys you want to scout just in case. It's a guy that the Blazers I could see drafting if he fell 16 or whatever around there with the Knicks pick. So he's a guy that'll be available and a guy that the Blazers would look at for sure. Filipowski. Thing about him is he's putting up some good numbers, but his percentage is not great, not very efficient. Again, one of those centers that you need to hope that he can move in the NBA. It remains to be seen if he could do that. 4 seed versus 13 seed, Tennessee versus Louisiana. I dislike the Tennessee team this year, always do. Rick Barnes, one of those coaches, again, that always chokes in the tournament. But I do have Tennessee beating Louisiana and then losing to Oral Roberts. I have Oral Roberts going to the Sweet 16, and that's why I do like Purdue to get all the way to the Final Four, because I think they would overwhelm Oral Roberts in that Sweet 16 matchup. So I'd have Tennessee advancing and then losing to Oral Roberts.
Yeah, so I got Duke and Tennessee facing off in the second round. Duke beating Tennessee. Duke versus Memphis, a 5 versus 8 seed matchup in the Sweet 16. Thereafter, I have Memphis beating Purdue. I have Duke advancing to the Elite Eight, where they lose. So
Okay.
we'll see who I have coming out of that.
Oof.
Next game, Kentucky Providence.
Oof.
I want your thoughts on this game first, because I think there's a very clear reason why one of these teams will win this game.
Oh, well, dang. I don't know. I don't see that. I have Kentucky winning this game. Mostly just because I just don't like the Big East and Providence. I feel like they're just a little overrated as always. And I know Kentucky hasn't been great either, but I've seen this Kentucky team battle with Calipari, and I do like what they do offensively. They've been able to score the basketball. Defensively, they're still not great, but they've improved a lot as the season went on. At the start of the year, defensively, there was a lot of problems. They've gotten a lot better as the season has gotten on. I do love their athleticism with the offensive rebounding. I think that does help in the NCAA tournament when guys are a little tight and you miss some shots to get some extra points. So I do like Kentucky in this matchup.
Here's a stat that caught my eye.
Give it to me.
Providence is 1-5 when they lose the rebounding battle.
Ooh.
Kentucky is a great rebounding team, led by Oscar Tshiebwe.
Yes.
I just think, Providence relies a lot on out-rebounding teams in order to get their wins. I don't think they're going to be able to do that to Kentucky. I think that will be the main reason. Obviously, much more goes into this game, but I just think Kentucky is a better team on both sides of the floor, at least when they have things going defensively. I just don't think Providence can out-rebound them at the level that they're able to out-rebound other teams, because that's the thing. They've only been out-rebounded in 6 games, which means 75-80% of their games they're out-rebounding the other team, and they don't win when they don't out-rebound the other team. So that's the key for this game. That's why I'm going with Kentucky over Providence.
Yeah, the thing about Kentucky, they've been injured by the end of the year. The point guard, Severe Wheeler, has been hurt for a while. CJ Frederick. You hope that those guys are back for Kentucky, but I agree with you. I think Kentucky's just a better team, and like I said, they're a great offensive rebound team. They're going to get some extra shots. What do you think of Tshiebwe in the NBA? You think he's got a shot?
Another one of those bigs where I don't really know how his game translates in a positive manner. I think he's a late second-round pick at best. He's kind of had a little bit of a down year this year, and not somebody that's going to shoot, not somebody that's super big for the center position. He can't play a power forward position because you don't want him defending the perimeter, and he's not a shooter. So role in the NBA doesn't really make sense for him. He's one of those college bigs that can play well in college that will struggle in the NBA.
100% agree. I actually have Kentucky going to the Elite Eight. I think the bottom half of this bracket is very weak, very whack, as I would say. And I got Kentucky going to the Elite Eight, losing to Purdue. Kansas State versus Montana State. I wanted to pick Montana State really badly, Torey, because I think Kansas State isn't as good as they have. Like, they just have this showed. They've also haven't been this good in a long time.
Yeah.
But, Jerome Tang has done a great job at Kansas State in his first season, but I think that worries me a little bit that it's his first year. They're so good. Their best player, I can't think of his name right now, Marcus Noel.
That's
what yes, Noel,
him
the point guard.
Keontae Johnson, who's a phenomenal story.
Phenomenal story. Noel, he was a transfer from Little Rock, and then he's been really good. Like, he was getting player of the year consideration for a little bit during the year, then just kind of fell off a little bit. And then Keontae Johnson, like you said, he was the guy passed out at Florida, right? Passed out on the floor, was out for the whole season, missed all of last year. Didn't know if he'd ever play again. He's back. He's an insane athlete at 6'6", 230, just big guy. He's had a great season for Kansas State. Awesome story right there. I do like Kansas State to beat Montana State, but lose to Kentucky in round 2. But Kansas State has got some good stories that I think if they did make a run, it would make good for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, Big Sky teams are always overseeded, in my opinion. They never seem to do much in the NCAA tournament, so I'm not taking Montana State over Kansas State, even though this is probably the least confidence I have in a 3 seed. They just haven't played well lately, but I don't know. I feel like I'll be rooting for Kansas State just because of the Keontae Johnson story. And speaking of Keontae Johnson, he's a guy for Blazer fans to pay attention to as a 6'6", small forward, 230. Plays a little bigger than he is due to that strength and due to his athletic ability. And he's shooting 42% from three this year, 52% from the field, super efficient, and just kind of a smart player. And when he missed that time, he actually helped out the Florida coaching staff a lot. So, could have been beneficial for him just learning more about the game, how to game plan for teams like a coach, that sort of thing. He's a guy that would be intriguing with that second round pick that the Blazers have as a potential 3-and-D guy who maybe gets overlooked because he's going to be 23 on draft night, but who's been efficient, can finish, knock down threes, probably play adequate defense in the NBA, maybe better, hopefully better for him. That seems like it could be a steal.
And unfortunately, he has the health questions as well.
Yeah.
That will always have to be answered, but again, nothing that he can help with, right? Like, that's just what he had to battle through. Montana State's got a couple dudes, though. Raekwon Battle played at Washington.
Mm-hmm.
They got a couple big guys. Bello is 6'9", 240. Their other guy, Asober, I think it's his name, but I watched him play in that the Big Sky tournament. He's 6'8", 245. So they got some big dudes, big beefy guys down low. I think this game's close, but I think Kansas State wins the game. 7-10, Michigan State versus USC. Torey, I know you don't like the Big Ten, and I agree with you that this Michigan State team has to be one of the worst in the recent Tom Izzo eras. I got USC winning this game. I don't even necessarily like USC this year. I think they're okay. Boogie Ellis is a good backcourt guy. Drew Peterson has been hurt the last couple of games. Reese Dixon Waters was the 6th man of the year in the Pac-12. I don't even think this USC team's good. I more think this Michigan State team is really bad and not very good. So I got USC winning this game.
Yeah, I just don't think USC's. I don't think USC's any good. Who have they beaten? They beat UCLA.
Nobody.
They beat UCLA, but other than that, they beat Auburn by 3 at home. Auburn by 3. Auburn's not impressive, especially away from home. They have not played well on the road. They beat Arizona State twice. That's their next best win. Okay, cool. Like, who have you beaten? Michigan State would probably be the second best win on their resume if they were able to beat them. They played in a down Pac-12. I do not trust USC at all. At all. I don't like USC. I'm taking Michigan State. Michigan State can shoot. They got a couple good guards. Got some experience. I think that's enough to beat USC. I'm just not impressed by USC. So
honestly,
bad.
I just hate both these teams. I think
why
both
does
these
this
teams
have
are
to
not
be
very good.
Why does this have to be a 7-10 matchup, and then you got Texas A&M versus Penn State?
Right, exactly.
Makes me mad.
It's complete opposite of that. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I wanted to pick against Marquette. Marquette, the 215 versus Vermont. I wanted to pick against Marquette, Torey. I think Marquette is so overhyped in this tournament. Again, one of those all offense, no defensive teams. No real pro prospects, unranked in the preseason. Now they're a 2 seed. I wanted to pick against them. I couldn't. I think they're the most vulnerable 2 seed, by the way. I teased that earlier. I think Vermont has a chance to beat them. And this isn't even the best Vermont team, not even close. But I do trust a Vermont team that always is in the NCAA tournament. They're on a hot streak. They've won 15 in a row. I think that they have a chance to win over Marquette because I just don't think Marquette's very good. I know they're 12th in KenPom, but their defense isn't great. I'm really down on this Marquette team. I think that they should lose early, but there's no one to take them out. So I have them losing Kentucky in the Sweet 16.
This region we disagree on so much. I think you underrate their defense. They're 48th in KenPom. That's not terrible. Great offensive team. Shaka Smart has always been a defensive coach. It's actually impressive that they're better offensively. They just ran through the Big East, looked very impressive, beat UConn. I don't know. You said their defense is horrible. I don't see that. I see a team that is solid defensively and can play good enough defense to hang in a game when their shots not falling, and then when their shots are falling, they're really, really tough to beat, and they're really well coached. I like Marquette. 28-6, 17-3 in a Big East. I'm not as down on the Big East as you were. I don't trust Vermont whatsoever. Vermont plays in a terrible America East. If you look at their non-conference games, they are terrible. Vermont is 1-3 versus tournament teams. They lost by 29 to Yale. who's not even in the tournament because they lost to Princeton. They lost by 21 to Iona. They lost against USC at USC by 2. They were close, but they lost by 26 to St. Mary's. I don't think Vermont's going to beat them. I think that 7-10 matchup Marquette's going to take care of. I don't really trust Kansas State. I think Marquette advances past there. And then I think it's Marquette and Duke. I actually got Marquette in the Final Four.
Oh, see, I totally disagree with you. I know that Marquette's the defensive number is 48, great on the season. In conference, though, Torey. So, defensively, 97.5 on KenPom for the year. In conference, they're 104.2. So, the conference numbers are way worse, and that's when they played better teams. I just don't trust this team, man. Defensively, like, they give up a lot of 2-point field goals on the season that aren't very good. They don't have any rim protectors. Like, I just think this team lacks a lot, and if they're not making their shots, which they may just go hot and they just might make a bunch of shots all tournament, I don't think that they're gonna win. I don't think they're gonna win a lot of games, but I think that their path is so easy that they're gonna get to the Sweet 16 relatively easy because they play Vermont and then probably USC or Michigan State, who we both think aren't very good. So I got them in the Sweet 16. I hate it because I wanted to pick them to lose. Like, going into the tournament, they were one of the teams that I had written down, like, I can't wait to bet against this team. I just can't find a spot until the Sweet 16. So I do have Marquette winning, but I don't like it.
Yeah. I don't know. I like teams that are able to force turnovers, but don't have to rely on them. And that's really what they are to me. Defensively, they're able to grind out defensive possessions when they're not able to force turnovers, but they are a good team at forcing turnovers, getting easy buckets off them. They play at a really fast pace on offense, actually slow down the game defensively. It's quite fascinating. I don't know, man. Marquette isn't a team I thought I would be putting in my Final Four. I just think they have the easiest path out of any 2 seed. I would feel more comfortable if this was Texas here. I would probably have Texas in the Final Four. Instead, I have Texas losing in the first round because I want to pick a 15, and that's the only game where I actually think the 15 has any chance. So it's kind of fascinating how that works out. But this region, I don't like at all. This region, and then the whole Texas, Penn State, Texas A&M region section, that's where my bracket's going to get screwed. I already know it, but I got Marquette. Yeah, I'm going to regret. I feel like I'm going to regret it, but I'm going Marquette. We'll see. Because I hate Purdue, and I'm going Marquette. You got Purdue in the championship game, and you hate Marquette. So.
I hate it all. The East region is going to screw us all over. We already know this. Like, that region is so up for grabs. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there's probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 teams, maybe even 6 teams that I think could win that bracket. And I don't know
Duke is the 5 in that region.
I don't even know if they could win any other bracket. Like, that's the thing. Like, you look at all the other brackets, I don't know if they could win any other brackets, but I think there's like 6 teams that could come out of the East region. So
yeah. At first I had Duke, but then it's like they're going up against Oral Roberts, man. As the 12, like, it's just gross. That's gonna be nerve wracking. I don't want to be that mad if Oral Roberts wins against Duke. Like, oh, it's tough. Like, at this point, I'm debating putting Memphis in the Elite 8. But I also don't want to root against Florida Atlantic, who Memphis is playing in the first round. Like, I like their story, and they're really good mid-major, like 31-3 or something. Like, I don't want to root against them. So this becomes the part where I overthink my bracket, and I just have no idea what I want to do.
I agree with you, but I love it. I love the bracket, Torey, of course. So Final Four for me, I got Alabama taking on Purdue on one side, Texas taking on UCLA, and then Purdue taking on UCLA, who was my ultimate winner, the Bruins, taking home, cutting down the nets in Houston. Torey, what you got?
Yeah, Alabama versus Marquette, 1 versus 2, and then I got on the other side of things, Houston versus UConn, 1 versus 4. I got Alabama and UConn in the championship, and I got Alabama winning it all. But
it's almost like the internet is listening to us because this poll just popped up from ESPN. Note of which of the men's 1 seeds will lose first in the tournament. Just popped up on my Twitter timeline, Torey. You know who won that one? Purdue by a landslide.
Yeah.
Everyone's hating
Purdue.
I love it. I love my pick now. Everyone hates Purdue. That means Steven loves Purdue. So
they can't even beat St. Peter's in the Sweet 16. So we'll see. They never do anything.
All I know is I got to defend my bronze medal last year, the Blazers Uprise.
Yeah. The only
bracket
two
there.
things I might switch with this, man, I might put Duke in the Final Four over Marquette, and I might change my mind and put Texas over Houston. I just don't know what to do with the Texas-Penn State region, that section, so that's just disgusting to me. I do want to pick a 15. I always pick a 15. I've gotten a couple of 15 seeds right, Florida Gulf Coast, Oral Roberts in the past, so I want to try and do it again, and I don't know, like, the other 2 seed I have losing in the round of 32 is Arizona, but I have no faith in Princeton beating them, so I don't know what to do.
Yeah, the 15s are kind of not great this year.
Nope.
15s and 16s are really bad this year, so
Yep.
I agree with you. It's unfortunate you couldn't get like a Kennesaw State or like a Santa Barbara even to get the 15, but man, I love March. I love March, and of course, when you go bet on it, bet on Bet Online. For my man Torey Jones. Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for listening. We appreciate all the listeners out there. We love the comments and all the reviews. Torey, you got anything else to add real quick before we set it off here?
Nah, man, if you want to join my $20 bracket pool that Steven's in as well, let me know, or let him know, and he could forward you to me. We're also doing a free bracket pool for Blazers Uprise. There's a link on the Blazers Uprise Twitter page. Go to @Blazers Uprise YT for that link. The winner of that will get a Blazers Uprise merch package from a future merch drop. I don't know when that's coming, but we'll do some more merch in the future.
Am I eligible to win that?
Yes, you're eligible to win that if you're in our free
right.
bracket pool. And if
right,
I
we'll
win
do
it, then I don't have to give anyone free merch. So it's a win for me.
Save money overall. Yeah, and
Yep.
like I said, I got 3rd place last year. I'm coming for the #1 spot this year. I love it. Purdue's going to make the final and make me some money in the Blazers Uprise bracket. So for my man Torey Jones, check him out. Torey Jones YT on Twitter, Blazer Uprise, all that good stuff. I am Steven Vaughn. Catch me at Steven_VON on Twitter. As always, thank you. And Blazers, come on, what are you doing?